Hi, I'm Don Bodan from SampleLibraryReview.com. Today we're going to be checking out the Berlin Woodwind Soloists 1 and 2 bundle by Orchestral Tools. Orchestral Tools has re-released the Berlin Woodwind Soloists 1 and Berlin Woodwind Soloists 2, this time for the SINE Player. The library includes 9 expressive solo instruments with flute, oboe, English horns, clarinet, bassoon, bass flute, bass oboes, bass clarinet. These are all specifically captured with close mics in the Teldex Solo Booth. In total, they download at about 8.5 gigabytes, compressed with the SINE Arc compression from 18 gigabytes, and these are 24-bit 48K samples. It does require Orchestral Tools SINE Player, which is free. All you gotta do is sign up at Orchestral Tools for the SINE Player. You'll get it as well as the SINE Factory free instruments. This bundle normally sells for 460 euros. You can pick it up now for 249 euros. I'll include links to take you straight over to Orchestral Tools if you'd like to grab this or learn more about the instruments. Before we dive in, I wanted to play a little mock-up I created learning about the instruments. I only used one articulation for all of this, just the expressive legato sustains, and the only other note here is that I did use Berlin Inspire 1's full orchestra pad for some full sound to fill out the orchestra there. Anytime I get some new software, I always like to write something with it. It helps me really understand how it reacts, what some of the strengths and weaknesses are, and what I can get away with it. The thing that I love about the library, without spoiling too much before the first look here, is that it's very expressive and intimate. The spot mics that they used for these instruments have such great character in them. And I think I'll play some of the instruments that are doubling. So for instance, I use some pretty classic doubling techniques, flute and bass flute in octaves. And you can hear the character of them. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my convolution and my IR mic so you could just hear what it sounds like. So that's a pretty classic way to orchestrate with a flute and a bass flute. And then I went ahead and did the same thing, same technique using oboe and bass oboe as well. For the next melodic phrase, I went ahead and utilized a bassoon and an alto flute, and I really love the sound, this combination of doubling. And then for the final passage, I just mixed it up a little bit. I used alto flute, oboe, and bass clarinet just to get a little bit of a different texture there. And also, this is the first time I used 3 instruments stacked, so we get a little bit of a more full sound, which usually will make sense as you're building a piece and you want it to have a little more oomph towards the end. And you can hear there, I don't have any reverb at all on these. The way the instruments load up, you've just got 2 different spot mics. So what I went ahead and did, which is a technique that's often used, is use a convolution reverb and an algorithmic reverb here, and then you get a little bit of richer sound with some room. And it's just enough reverb, I feel, that it really blends and adds and fills it out. I still hear the wonderful, intimate character that they've created with these instruments, without having it be super long-tailed reverb. This is just kind of where I got with my personal choice. It wasn't in a template. This is a brand new instrument to me, so it's kind of how I would work with it. I think I already mentioned that I used Berlin Inspire, and I just used that instrument for their full orchestra, sustains. So that's really just kind of to fill it in and give it a little more sound of the orchestra. All right, I'm glad I got to share a little bit of this with you. Let's dive in and look at each of the instruments individually. For the flute instrument, you can see in the SINE Player, the main flute loads up in the Berlin Woodwind Soloist 1. In this package, we've got a soloist flute, solo alto flute, solo oboe, solo English horn, and solo clarinet with 2 spot mics. After I've loaded up, I've got access to my performance tab where my key switching will take place to change my articulation. Now I do have my reverbs on. I'll go ahead and mute those so you can hear the instrument with nothing. And overall, I really love the sound of it. I think it is intimate and detailed. So let's listen to the second spot mic. And my takeaway is that spot 1 is a little bit more of a high-end detail and intimacy. Spot 2 seems to be a little bit warmer, in my personal opinion. You might want to note here where they've got an ornamentation articulation with half tone and whole tone. And you can change that variation with a MIDI CC. Right now it's set to 4. And then it's kind of neat, they have a breath noise articulation. Moving on to the alto flute. You can see we got the same basic setup, all the same articulations, which makes it so easy to use. You also want to note that you do hear a little bit of the player breathe, which adds a little realism to it, in my opinion. Moving on to the bass flute, you can once again see we have the same articulations, makes it easy to utilize the same kind of MIDI or map it. Now, remember how I said I had a feeling the spot 2 was a little bit of a fuller sound? I'm curious to see how that sounds with the solo bass flute. Moving on to the oboe, again, same list of articulations in order. This time we do have trills. And more variations on the ornaments. Bass oboe follows suit with articulations in the similar form. Clarinet follows same articulations with those additions for trills. With half tones and whole tones. And the bass clarinet, I really love the sound of this instrument. And my only real critique now that we're getting into some of the lower instruments here in the Soloist Bundle 2 is your articulations do jump up to C6. You are able to grab and drag them. Actually, you have to click. So we'd have to do a lot of clicking. There might be another way that I just don't know how to program here with the SINE Player, although I would love to have all my articulation key switches all somewhere that they're just going to sit. English horn has a really wonderful sound. Then we do have ornamentations and trills. The bassoon in this bundle probably is my favorite of all the instruments. I just love the way this one sounds. Overall, I have to say I'm a big fan of the overall timbre that they've captured. I absolutely love the detail and intimacy they've gotten out of these. With the two different spot mics, you can kind of mix them and match them if you want. They don't really seem to phase. There are a couple notes from here to there where you do hear the instrument move a tiny bit in the stereo spectrum, and I guess that would be kind of natural for a player to rock a little from side to side when they were playing. However, it does kind of stand out in this when you got headphones on and you're really listening to it in the context of it playing a solo in front of an orchestra for virtual instruments. I don't think you're going to notice it that much, and I think the detail and expressiveness you can get out of these really lends itself to a specific kind of writing. There's some things I think that I would have liked to seen get a little bit louder, a little more higher dynamic level, especially from the piano to the mezzo forte range. It's really lovely, very detailed and intimate. All of these instruments sound fantastic, and a big plus playing through it, as I've shown you, they are close spot mics with no reverb. It gives you the ability to go ahead and add your own reverbs blended in with your other instruments, which I'm not so much on the purist side that everything has to be in the same hall, but it does give you one more thing to kind of think about. So thanks so much for spending a little time with me, checking out the Berlin Woodwind Soloists 1 and 2. Currently a big deal right now at Orchestral Tools. I think you can save like 299 euros. It's available for 249 euros for a limited time. I'll include a link over to Orchestral Tools. I've told you what my thoughts were along the way. Very eager to hear your thoughts. Please comment below and let me know what you think about these. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, maybe share it with your grandma today. She might want to hear some beautiful woodwinds. And be sure to head back to the channel for Fridays, where we have our weekly deal compressor show, recapping the latest announcements for new releases and deals in the virtual instrument world.